of Georgian Bay. Okay.
Keep going.
Throughout the last 25 years, Tom has a profound impact on the people he has dealt with in business and his personal life. Second Line West, Tom Herstad's book launch, Love, Care, Share, is about a lady who has a message for all of us. It also stories of what he has learned over his 5 decades. He would like to see more people look deeper into their lives and see what they can do to experience more happiness and fulfillment. In his book, Second Line West, you'll find a treasure trove of possibilities and how they can impact and inspire you to pursue a more gratifying life. He will have signed copies of his book available after his talk. You can, the cost is $25, and you can do an e-transfer if you wish. Please join me in welcoming Tom Herstad.
All right, good morning. My name is Tom Herstad. Little segue from the dog stories. There's lots of dog stories in this book. My family's from this area. I'll start there. Niagara-on-the-Lake, Concession Road. My Uncle Mike Bell ran the billiard hall in Thorold for years. Anybody remember that? Okay. Strike one. Valinkovich was the family name, but he shortened it to Bell. And down on the 8 acres on Concession Road, just out of St. David's towards Niagara-on-the-Lake. That's where my family started years ago. There was 100 acres there. My great-grandfather used to make muck-io, which is a peach brandy. He wasn't a drinker, but he would hand it out to neighbors and the police to help him. Okay. Okay. So that's where we started. My Auntie Elaine is there. Elaine Wise, real estate. Anybody? There's one. Okay. Good. I still got 2 more. My father, grandfather, hockey players. My father had a heart murmur due to rheumatic fever when he was 2. And in his junior career, he was being scouted. I guess he was playing for Stanford. And during the scouting stage, they found the heart murmur, and that's where his career stopped. But so yeah, that's a little bit of history of how I connect to this area. And I'd like to tell you a story today about a lady who paid attention to people. Like a segue from the dog stories, how dogs pay attention to people. They pick up on an instinct about people. I think we've all had a family member that's in challenging time come and visit our home, and the dog just won't leave their side. My mother had that instinct. So I'm a lighting designer by trade. That's why I was playing with the lights. Lighting sets a mood and also allows you to feel a particular way. White lighting in the middle because it's daylight and we want to stay awake and do something. The warm white relaxes the room. So that's my lighting 101 for today. But this is a lighting design. I didn't do this, but I like to start off my talk with something interesting. This is in Paris, France. The lighting design was done for a public service announcement for people to get more exercise. Okay, so how did I find PROBUS? PROBUS, Burlington Chapters Indigo, two Februarys ago, 2 years ago. A lady approached the book signing table and I had a conversation with her. And she asked me a bunch of questions. Why'd you write this book? What's the message? How did a book become being made into a movie? I'm going to share that with you today. And I answered all of her questions. And then she said, you should speak. All of those answers, you should put them in a speak and you should target PROBUS. Chapters are all over Southern Ontario. I wasn't aware of PROBUS at the time, and I went home and I Googled and saw there were so many chapters, and it was great sending emails to everybody and waiting for a response. So this is the 26th speak I've done for PROBUS. And it's a wonderful group to talk to. I've had some wonderful things happen, met some very interesting people. So that's how I found PROBUS. I'd like to share an interesting story with you. 2 days after my mother passed away, our routine in the house is I go down and make the coffee, and that's back in 2011. So that's the drip days. So I set up the coffee and I started, and it's dripping, and I'm standing there looking at it. I look out the back window, confines of the window into my backyard, and I lived in that time in Georgetown, just north of Mississauga, northwest corner. And I was looking into the backyard, and these two white butterflies came into the confines of the window frame, and they were flying in and out of one another. And what came to me when I saw the two butterflies was my mother and father are back together. My father died when I was 12. Mom had just passed away 2 days earlier, and I thought it was a message that they were sending me that they were back together again, because they didn't leave the confines of the window for about a minute. And then one left because he left early. And then the one that stayed left, and I looked out, and the other one was on the fence waiting, and they went out and off into the distance, and I didn't see them again. So upstairs I go with the coffee for Jules. I grab my coffee and I go into the front office and I log on. I work out of the house. One of my mother's best friends sent me an email that morning. Her name was Chris. And she's a psychic. And she said, your mother wanted me to send you this picture this morning. It was a picture of a butterfly. It's interesting. My mother always talked with us about there's so much more to the world that we don't see because we're so busy. I'd like to share a speaking intention with the audience so that you know what I'm trying to share with you today. To express to people why my mother's life story is worth sharing. Why is the story worth reading about? And why is the story worth making a movie about? During the expression of Mom's message and sharing the details of the book to movie journey, I will connect with individuals, communities, and organizations, spreading awareness and engaging as many people as possible with Margie's message. In so doing, I hope to raise the conscious awareness for a kinder, more compassionate, more empathetic world for all. How is it that we find true joy and true fulfillment in our life? I think it's something that we all think about at different times, but especially in the later years. Where was joy? Where was fulfillment? I think my mother had it figured out. Okay, so she's a widow at 37 with 4 children and a grade 6 education. The death of my father was on December 3rd, 1975. They had just left a restaurant in Brampton, Ontario, with a doctor and his wife. It was the wife's birthday. They get into their separate cars, and my father's telling a joke as they're walking out into the parking lot, and they get into his 1976 silver Monte Carlo, and they get into the car. My father continues the joke, and they're both laughing as he pulls out onto Queen Street in Brampton. They're both laughing, and he hiccups. His head hits the headrest. His foot floors the gas. He's in full cardiac arrest. My mother has to grab the steering wheel, steer the car out of oncoming traffic, go through a red light, and then turn the car down a residential road and crash the car into a house. There was a doctor and his wife, so the doctor sees this and is following. My mother kicks the door open on her side, pulls him out onto the front lawn and starts CPR. The doctor takes over at the scene, but he didn't make it home that night. The next morning, my bedroom was directly across the hallway. I opened my door that morning and I saw my mom and dad's bed made. And I knew that moment, he's gone. So we waited, we didn't go to school that morning. My mother fell into depression, losing the love of her life. But she had always continued to share our spare bedroom. Our spare bedroom was very rarely empty, all the time, not just after my father passed. And he would bring people home as well. Those stories are in the book. But my mother's story is she fell into a depression. The dinner would be finished, dishes put away, lunches made for the next morning. And around 7:30, 8 o'clock, she'd descend into the basement and she'd play their music. Harry Belafonte, Ray Charles, Johnny Cash, Roy Orbison. Vicky Carr was the hardest one to hear. Is it him? And she'd drink herself to sleep on the floor. And we would coax her to bed. And those were difficult days, coming home and opening the sliding glass door at the back of the house, and you hear the music and you know what's going on. Now you got to go to the basement, you got to coax her to bed. And the first time you can't coax her to bed, you got to make those stairs up. The third one from the top, you stop and you ask yourself, I'm comfortable allowing her to stay there. And my mother always said, sometimes you have to let go and let God. And then I was able to go to bed because we all tried to help out, but it was her journey to take. So yeah, this is a lady that took care of a lot of people. Now through that, she found AA all on her own. One day, she was helping a friend, Dottie. Dottie was the manager of the local wine store. And she said, I got to go to an AA meeting tonight. I got to take Dottie. I'm like, what's going on? Well, I think she's an alcoholic. She's opening late. And sometimes she leaves with 2 bottles. Now we wondered why she knew that. But we wouldn't ask. We had too much respect for her. She went to the AA meeting that night and she came home and called a family meeting. And she said, she plugged in the kettle for tea, and in the kitchen where everything was discussed, we all came in and she looked at us and she put her hands on the countertop and she said, I'm an alcoholic. I went to that meeting and that's who I am and that's what's going on with me right now. And I've got to go to these meetings to find myself and save myself. So she never drank again. But again, continuing to bring people in our house before the bout of depression, during the bout of depression, and after the bout of depression. At my mother's memorial service in 2011, we were approached by people we hadn't seen since the 70s and 80s and into the mid 90s. These are people that took the spare bedroom. So just to give you an example, my mother would go out, come home from some get together, say, Joe is going to be staying with us for a little while. I'm not sure how long. We'll figure it out. That was always her answer. We'll figure it out. So at the memorial service, we're approached by these people we haven't seen in years. And we have wonderful conversations. It's like a reunion. And about 2 weeks after my mother's memorial service, my youngest sister and I, Julianne, are driving through Caledon, talking about our mother, grieving together. And I said, there was more people than 5 or 6 that Mom took care of in that spare bedroom. And I said, there's a piece of paper and a pen in the glove box. Why don't we make a list? So we came up with a list of 18 names. 18 people that spent time in that spare bedroom, or in our basement, or in our garage. She converted our garage into a room. In the pool house, she converted that into a little apartment. we went and we decided to make a decision to find them. So it's 2011. We decided to go and find people that stayed in our home back in the 70s, 80s, and the mid-90s. It took us 3 years, but through social media and word of mouth, we found every one of them. I've always been close with my mother, honor and respect for her. But this took it to a whole other level. I knew that this is a story that needed to be told. It needed to be shared. And that's what happened. We decided to get the interviews completed. They're finished. And we agreed that my sister would write the book. I'm a sales and marketing guy. English was my worst course in school. And I went to Rochester Institute of Technology, not too far from here. But my sister is the smartest in the family, the attention to detail, a double major. She was going to write the book. 3 months after the 3 years of interviews and videos, and they wrote us letters, my sister wasn't calling me back. She lives about 30 minutes north of where I am in Bell Fountain. So I went and knocked on her door that night and I said, you know, do you have anything written? What's going on? And she said, I can't write a paragraph. I don't know what's happening, but I'm being stopped. I'm letting you down. I'm letting mom down. I can't sleep. And I said, come on, we'll sit on the couch. We sat, and I said, look, 3 years of interviews and videos, and I got this. I'll finish this. I'll do this. Don't worry about it. Go get some rest. So on the way back, about 30-minute drive, I wondered what did I just get myself into. I've written some poetry. Never thought I would ever write a book. But I drove home, 30-minute drive, and came into the house. I remember I didn't take my shoes off. I just walked through the kitchen hallway into the dining room. I opened my laptop and I typed, how do you write a book? James Patterson came up on the screen. And I clicked on a YouTube video of his. And it was like he was talking to my soul. He said, don't worry about the words, the paragraph, or the page. Just tell the story. I said, well, that's what I do every day. Entrepreneur, sales, you tell a story with a positive mutual benefit. So I closed the laptop and I thought, maybe I can do this. But I let it go, went to bed. A couple of weeks later, 3 a.m., I wake up. Now I'm a midday napper. I love my rest. To get me out of bed at 3 a.m. is a big deal. But I put my slippers on, my house coat, and down I go, and I open up the laptop, start typing. At a certain point, I move my writing from the dining room to the loft. We have a 1922 farmhouse I live in, and there's a little loft at the top. You got to open this little door, duck your head, go up these vertical stairs into the space. It's 10 by 20, and there's a big window at each end. And I started writing. I flatlined. I don't know what that means. I'm not a writer yet. I don't trying to do something. I'm figuring my way through it. But I just call it a flatline. Nothing was coming anymore. The stories were finished. I had a 68-page draft. And something was telling me to go away. My mother always said, you have an inner voice, get quiet and listen. Something was telling me to go away. So I scheduled a trip to Cayo, Cuba. Get on the flight, sit beside a quiet couple. We get into a conversation about halfway through the flight. And I'm a lighting designer. She's an interior designer, so we have that conversation. Her husband's a life coach. Interesting conversations with him. And then the last 20 minutes, she says, what else do you do? I said, well, I'm trying to figure out how to write this book about my mother. She says, I'm an independent publisher, best-selling author, writing coach. Wow. So we get into this frenzied conversation, the last 20 minutes of the flight, and then when it lands, you know how it happens when planes land. They go their way, I go my way, everybody's scattering. We didn't even exchange business cards. Her name is Tanya Friedman. So a week later, I get back on a flight with my coconut leaf green hat, and I'm coming down the aisle, and I'm sat directly beside Tanya again. We have this amazing conversation all the way home. And I told her I have a 68-page draft, and she agreed to take the 68-page draft and give it a read and see if it was just for our family or if it had a bigger purpose. As we were walking off the plane, my youngest sister came along for the trip. She asks Tanya, when's your birthday? Tanya says, May 14th. That's my mother's birthday. Another interesting thing. So when we get home, I send her the 68-page draft. 2.5 weeks later, she calls me and she says, it was Thursday at 9:30. I'll never forget the call. She said, Tom, this is Tanya. You and I are going to do something wonderful today. We're going to share your mother's story with the world. This is a big story that needs to be told. So I took 4 months off of my lighting business and I dove into this. And she started coaching. Here's the loft, pink paper, because my mother's favorite color was pink. Gave me a chance to walk around in the stories, change the chronological order, pull stories down, knowing I had to add more to this, and just kind of relax and let the stories come. You can't chase them because it's a daunting task. You have to wait on the stories. That's what I found out. So again, the interviews and letters and the stories were pinned. And then one night, a buddy of mine gave me a 1950s Remington typewriter for motivation. I didn't type on it. I used my laptop, but it was neat to have it in the room. I even slept up there. But one night I was typing, and it was probably around 4 in the morning, and I stopped typing and I leaned back and I looked at all these pages on all 4 walls, and I thought to myself, why? Why did she do this? And what's interesting about that is I lived in this house. I saw these people go in and out. I never asked her why. Now, I would never ask her anyway. I had too much respect for my mother. She'd have to explain herself to me. I'm the son. I just listen. We had that. But I thought, why did mom do this? And I got thinking, and this occurred for me. I think we're born with an inherent desire, want, and need to connect and help one another. In so doing, we experience the truth of joy and the truth of fulfillment. That's where it's found. And my mother did this as a natural instinct, and she never let it go. She didn't divert completely her focus on things and money and goals. Those are important, but she always paid attention to people around her and acted on this instinct and never left it behind. I'm going to share some stories with you that represent this instinct. As I said to you, I went to school in Rochester, New York, Rochester Institute of Technology. It's an hour and a half, 2 hours from here. I came home my first year in 1984, and I've been away for 9 months other than the 2 days of Christmas. As I pulled into the driveway, I saw there were no cars and unloaded my stuff to the back door, announced that I'm home, there was nobody around. I walk up the stairs, down through the kitchen to my room. There's ladies' clothing all over my room. I'm looking down the hallway, my mother's coming out of the dining room, and she's like this, "Shh, I need to talk to you." I said, I pointed into my room, I said, "What's going on in there?" She said, her name is Barbie. She needs that room more than you do right now. I'm not moving her around. You get your first year under your belt, your grades are up, you're on your way. This girl is not on her way, and you and I have an opportunity to do something about that for her. Know that I love you, you're my guy, but you need to make a decision right now. The spare bedroom or the couch. So I took the spare bedroom. Now, who was Barbie? My mother said we have a conscious connection with everybody in our life, a collective consciousness. When you think about somebody more than 2 or 3 times, call them. She was thinking about Irene. Irene and her hadn't talked in 22 years, her cousin. And she tracked her down in St. Louis. Now, Irene knew it was my mother the moment she picked up the phone by my mother's voice, and she said, "I can't believe you're calling me, Margie." My husband's dying of cancer, he's an alcoholic, and he's verbally abusing my youngest daughter, and she's suicidal. My mother said, put her on a bus. I got her. Just like that. Now, Barbie came into our house and regrouped and went into the theater industry as a prop specialist. When we interviewed Barbie, we asked, what would you say to people that don't know this story? And she said, this beautiful and lovely lady gave me a loving home and a second family when I was lost. Second story I want to share with you is Rosie. Rosie was a homeless lady at an AA meeting in Toronto. 1985. My mother locked eyes with this lady and walked across the room and gave her a big hug. They had a conversation. At the end of it, my mother said, it's Christmas, Rosie. Would you come home with me and spend Christmas with our family? Rosie came into our house, nervous laughter all day long, holding her hands over her mouth because she'd lost all of her teeth to poverty. So she spent Christmas, New Year's, ended up spending 3.5 months with us. And my mother bought her a full set of teeth while she was living with us. So Rosie smiled for a picture for the first time in years without being self-conscious of her smile. When she left, Rosie said this, your mother has given me 2 gifts more important than the teeth. The first gift she's given me is an opportunity to witness your relationships and feel a part of her family. I've never seen this before. The second gift your mother has given me is I now know how to love myself exactly the way I am. So when everybody was walking past this lady, maybe in this AA meeting, my mother paid attention to her and acted on an instinct that I believe we're born with, but my mother never forgot. Henrietta was a hen. She did it with animals as well. I think it was a Sunday. We were having breakfast and there was a hen come walking up the driveway. And at this time we were off of Second Line West, living in the country. That's why the book is called Second Line West, but we'll get into that. Well, my mother had sold that house and she's living in Streetsville. Anybody know where Streetsville is? Okay. So the north end of Mississauga there. So this hen comes walking up the driveway. My mother looks out the window and walks out of the house, opens the gate. This hen comes authoritatively walking into our backyard. Nests at the back of the pool. It's a 10-foot in-ground pool with a slide and a diving board and a barbecue area and a nice sitting area. And this nests now. Now Henrietta nested and started laying eggs. They're not fertilized. So 2-3 weeks later, they start to smell. And we got to go up and coax Henrietta with bread out of the nest. And then bag the and dispose of the eggs. One morning, my mother's looking out the back window and Henrietta's sitting on this nest. And she looks at us at the kitchen table. She says, somebody's got to take me to a local farm. We go over to the local farm. She buys fertilized eggs. Actually, I think they gave them to her. Came back, got the bread out, coaxed Henrietta out of the nest. In go these fertilized eggs. And I guess 2 weeks later, all hell's breaking loose in the backyard. Henrietta's a mother and she's squawking and it was beautiful to watch. So my mother again paid attention to what's going on around her and added to lives, even a hen. And there were many dogs, by the way. She said it always brings more love into the house. So the 68-page draft was being worked on. It was being worked into a movie, a book. And I needed to get more experience about how others would accept or see this story. And I needed some motivation. So I went to a New York City publicity summit. And you go into a room kind of this size and there's media all around the room, newspaper columnists, movie producers, television producers, blog posts, writers, and you pitch your story to them as an idea. It's a very quick response. If it's not good for them, they just say, move on, because there's so many people in the room. I connected with this lady, Bonnie Kogas. Does anybody read the Sudbury Star newspaper? Okay. She's been writing for 30 years. And she connected with me right off the bat. And she said, this story's got to be told. You keep going. And when you're done, you send it to me. So I went back with that motivation. I got good motivation from a lot of other people in there, but her specifically matters more because 6 months later, well, it was 4 months later after the book was first published, she called me and she said, "Where's that book you were going to send me?" And I said, "Thank you so much for remembering me, number one. And number two, the book was just published. I'll send you a copy." So I sent her a copy of the original title book, Love, Care, and Share. Now, why is it love, care, and share? Because that's what my mother did. And the definition starts the book. Her own definition based on her actions, not words or anything in a dictionary. So I sent the book to Bonnie, and Bonnie called me back and she said, "This has got some really great parts. Some other parts are a little slow. I'm a newspaper columnist. I want to help you out. Let's do another edition of this book. Let's speed it up. There's too many lulls. The reader's going to fall asleep or nod off or put the book down and not come back to it." So we ended up doing that. But before we did it, I said, "This is so lovely of you to suggest, but can I afford this?" She said, "Honey, this is a gift. I'm doing what your mother did. I'm gifting you this. I only want you to do two things for me. When I send you a revision, just do it. And from now on, I want you to call me Auntie Bonnie." What a beautiful gesture. And that's what happened. Now, when the book was republished, I knew I had a better product. When you go down this kind of road, you got to wait until you feel it's bulletproof because you're answering questions and you got to come from a commitment that's only there if you've done your best. So after the second edition was done and I felt good about it, I decided I was going to do chapters in Indigo book signings. And I went to the printing company, Soho Printing, and I said, "Okay, let's print some volume here because I got to bring the books with me." And they said, "Okay, here's one printed copy. Go proofread it, give it to us, and then we'll go green light and we'll print." This is my trailer. I decided to hook up the trailer and go down to the Oakville Yacht Club with the copy and read on a Saturday. So I backed in beside the Oakville Yacht Club and I could look out the window and excuse me, can I get some water? I didn't bring some water up with me. Anybody? Please. Thank you. I should have brought some up with me. So I took the book and I was reading, and there was a knock at the door about 90 minutes into the read. And I needed a reading break anyway, so I got up, I opened the door, and there was a guy standing there named Doug Gill. Now, I never met Doug before. Doug and I get into a conversation, but before that, he says, "I'm sorry, you're not Mike. Yeah, Mike was here 2 weeks ago in the same trailer in the same spot. Sorry to bother you." But then we get into a conversation. He's a writer, he writes sci-fi, we have that conversation. Then he says, "Tell me about your book." Well, I told him those stories that I just shared with you. And he said, "That should be a movie. I know a movie director, he's way too busy, but if I can get this to his wife and she likes it, you never know." Well, his wife, Paul Saltzman, his girlfriend, Annie Peace, loved the book, gave me a wonderful review and handed it to Paul Saltzman. Is anybody familiar with Paul Saltzman as a movie director or film owner? He Danger Bay, you remember that television series? That was his series. He was also involved with Beachcombers a little bit. But amazing guy, wonderful person, been involved in movie making for many, many years. And he said, he called me and he said,
Niagara's best tap water. Hopefully it's cold.
"Thank you. I'm sorry, I should have got some." Thank you. So Paul Saltzman says, "Come and see me." I call it my youngest sister. We've got a meeting with a movie director, producer, owner of Sunrise Films. She gets emotional. She comes down and we go and meet with Paul. He says, "Female lead, bright, beautiful stories, the courage to love without judgment. The world needs to know this lady. She's an example. You're onto something. But I'm too busy. I've got 3 projects on the go. But if you can find financing for a screenplay, come back and see me. We were delighted that he had that response, but I was like, Paul, how do you do that? How do you get screenplay money for a movie? He said, keep going. Put it out there. So as I said, I'm a lighting designer. My son and I work together. 4 months later, we are on a job site, and he goes and takes the tools back to the truck. I go get paid on the front steps. Laura Paletta comes out, part of the Paletta family, Paletta International meat wholesaler in Burlington, that family. Anyway, Laura comes out and she's paying, and they're also rushing to load the car. They're going for a vacation in Jamaica. I hand her a book as she's going past our truck, because I carry them with me. And I said, Laura, if you get any downtime on the beach, you know, she grabs a book. She says, I love to read, and off they go, and off we go. 3 days later, she emails me from Jamaica. She said, we want to meet with you when we come home. When Laura Paletta and her husband, Michael Paletta, came home, they met with my sister and I, and they said, we want to invest in a screenplay. This story needs to be shared with the world. Now, they have an understanding of the movie industry because Princess Gates Entertainment is a family-run business, and they have been involved in some projects, but they were doing this on their own. And this is Michael Paletta. So he and his wife originally invested in the screenplay. We did a round table, long story longer. My youngest sister wrote the original screenplay for this film. She's never written a screenplay before. That brings the daughter's energy into the project. She was being coached by Tom Schlesinger, 30 years experience, 35 years experience in screenplay writing, professor at Stanford, agreed to coach my sister. Oh, wrong way. So the screenplay was created. The movie had to be a different name than Love, Care, and Share. It's too self-helpy. It's too much of a female demographic target. So Second Line West is the name of the movie, because that's the road that we lived on. Everybody deserved a second chance on Second Line, and some third chance or a fourth chance. My mother never gave up on anybody. As long as you pulled weeds or helped out with the laundry or the dishes, you were welcome to go whatever you had to go through and find yourself again while you were going through some issue in your life. So I retitled the book Second Line West, and I added some stories. So it's actually the 3rd edition. And we have to co-brand now. There's 50 million books on the internet that you're competing with. And Amazon, and it's just... So retitled the book Second Line West. You can see the 2 butterflies are at the top. And again, tagline is Love, Care, and Share now, but the movie title and the book title is Second Line West. Victor Hugo, the creator of Les Miserables. To love another person is to see the face of God. Jim Carrey, comedian, actor, artist. The effect you have on other people is the most valuable currency there is. My mother's favorite motto was to love another is a gift you give to yourself. I'd like to ask you a closing question. We all have people in our life that have helped us along the way, support us along the way, loved us into being the people that we are today. I'd like to take the next 10 seconds along with me for you all to remember the people that were there for you, that helped you find your way, that loved you to being into the person you are today. I'll watch the time. Ten seconds. This is a book trailer video. questions or comments? I got a microphone here. Let me ask you this question. I'll ask you a question. Because this came up about 3 PROBUS meetings ago. The gentleman, when I asked question and answer, he stood up and he said, I have a question for the audience. And he said, how many of you thought about your mother during that 10 seconds? Could I see a show of hands? Okay. Any questions or comments? Yes.
Well, first of all, I would congratulate you on the effort you put into this. And that trailer, to me, is very intriguing and would invite you to see the movie. I think it's really exceptional.
Thank you. That means a lot.
From that trailer, just, wow, what's next? Steve.
Thank you. Yeah, and a troubled addict did that for me. Trevor. Thank you, Trevor. Yeah.
Other questions or comments? Sorry.
I found a great parallel.
Just a minute, Bob, so the young folks can hear.
I found a parallel in my mother. She was widowed at 35, left 3 children and a stepdaughter.
Okay.
102. And I found a lot of quite a parallel there.
Fantastic. Where's she from?
Pardon?
Where was she from?
Well, Ontario, she raised us in Barrie. She had, or my father was a minister and we didn't have a permanent home, but she moved to Barrie.
Okay, great. A rural community. My mother's story is from Kipperton Island. That's where she started. How many of you have roots from the East Coast? Yeah, it's a little different down there, right? They pay attention. You know, they'll buy you Tim Hortons if you follow them through the through the line. There's always room in the house. When I went down to visit the Cape Breton Cabot Trail with my first wife, we were tenting all the way around. When we went to New Waterford to take a picture of my mother's house, I was standing in the front of this house in the middle of the street, and it's residential, and I'm taking this picture, and a guy opens the door and he says, "Hey, what are you doing?" I said, "My mother grew up in this house." He said, "What was her name?" I said, "Margie Degas." "Oh my God, Margie." He goes in the house. He comes out with 2 other people. They come out to me on the street and they say, you know, "Take a picture of us." And we weren't, you know, we knew them, our moms. We have this conversation. Then they invite us in for a cup of tea. And then he's on the phone and he's rounding up his family. They're going to have a dinner for us. Like the sense of community down there is fantastic. Neighborhood watch. Everybody knows each other's business, but hey, you know, it is what it is. Any other questions, comments? I want to thank you very much for allowing me to speak today. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Lower this for me. First of all, thank you very much. And it was very interesting, entertaining, and informative. In terms of my takeaways on it, 2 words come to mind, which was included in your presentation, but I think it's very real, important: joy and fulfillment. And at the end of the day, that's what that was all about. And that was the message that at least I took, and I think a lot of us did. But we hope there's something else that will bring you joy and fulfillment. And that's in this envelope. It's a $30 LCBO gift certificate, so that when you're baking on your own and you're sipping on it, you'll think, oh yes, the PROBUS Club, joy and fulfillment,